Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 21 of Dungeon Meshi. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. Alright, so last we left off, Izutsumi was sort of warming to the group, but it seems like we're instead going to focus on everyone else. Which, you know, it's probably good to do that, seeing as how there's that whole issue of whether or not they intend to tell the elves about what's going on. Okay, so Shuro's going to... He's gonna talk, but he's not going to incriminate Lias and the others. Which, I don't know. Not sure how I feel about this, because it sort of puts the crosshairs down on Falin, which he shouldn't want, I would think, but... Yeah, it seems like things just aren't good all around, you know? Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I figured, that this white ship would be elves. And specifically elves who might have an interest in there not being any dark magic. So, yeah, this is decidedly not good. You know, this effectively means that the dungeon is spiraling out of control and that radical action will have to be taken. No doubt this isn't good for Lias and the others, especially if they want to find Falin and restore her to humanity and all that. Oh dear, it's probably a bitter pill to swallow for Namari, not understanding why Shuro has returned so soon. Of course, she doesn't know the full extent of everything, so she doesn't know how bad things truly are. Alright. It seems like the elves made it here first, and it's probably not a good thing that they did, really. And I guess, thinking about it, based on what Kabru's saying, it's a bad thing for very many reasons, you know. If elves essentially take over the dungeon, then... I mean, that's a whole industry that sort of goes by the wayside. I mean, I'd almost call it a cottage industry, but it really seems like more than that, you know? With an entire ecosystem of adventurers. You know, if that were to suddenly disappear overnight, that's, not a good thing, economically speaking. You know, all these people who suddenly don't have a career anymore, or a way to make money. Like, that's a recipe for bad things to happen. Speaking of bad things, you know, you're barging in to deal with elves. And, I mean, elves, that's all I can really say. Good on Kabru for, you know, speaking up and holding his ground against them, but... I feel like no good's really gonna come from this. Ooh. Alright, so this is bad. The idea that there is a chimera is indicative of things spiraling out of control, and therefore these elves are now justified in whatever they were planning on doing. Ooh. Yeah, you know, I don't like these elves. Almost immediately I don't really like them. And there's something about that elf. You know, I'd imagine those tattoos are, related to dark magic. You know, I just get a feeling. So this is actually kind of interesting. You know, Kabru wants to bring the dungeon under control, but not under his control. Under the control of, you know, like a just person, which most adventurers really aren't. And so I guess, to him, Laius represented something of a last hope. Maybe not Laius specifically, but he and his sister. Wow. You know, thinking about it, there is, I guess, considerable reason to think Laius would be, you know, an ideal candidate. I mean, I guess the way Kabru's describing it, it's almost sort of like, you know, the Hero of a Thousand Faces and all that. Like this selfless person of, you know, seemingly inconsiderable skills and all that, who nonetheless fares pretty well. And I guess it also helps that he's also approaching the heart of the dungeon as we speak. Because, you know, that was generally what we understood. He's progressing deeper into the dungeon to find Fallen. And, you know, if he keeps going, he might reach the bottom of it eventually. Yeah, you know, I don't think Kabru saying the dungeon's unstable is going to, get the elves to stop. If anything, I think it's really just gonna spur them on. You know, I'm not sure why he's telling them this. I feel like, oh, I take that back. He actually has something important to say. You know, they seem to know him, given that he is a survivor of what was a near-total massacre. I mean, I was wondering if, like, him saying this would only spur the elves to just, you know, really get the let out and try and storm the dungeon. Seems like they aren't, though. And I guess that is the other thing, you know, he mentioned nourishment in regards to the dungeon. So I'm wondering if he's saying, like, strategically let some people die. I'm wondering if this is one of those things where it's like, you control a forest fire by lighting more fire strategically to starve it of food. Oh. Okay. I guess that makes more sense, you know, just seal the dungeon so that way the monsters can't come out. Yeah, so I guess, that's not so bad for the people on the upper levels. They can get out with proper warning, but for Laius and the others, you know, this might very well be a death sentence. I guess Kabru's banking on the fact that maybe they can actually do it. But, man. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like, something about Kabru doesn't quite sit well with me. And I'm wondering if this is part of it, you know, like he's scheming and double-dealing and all that. I mean, whoever this guy is, he seems to reckon that something's going on here. Not that I really trust that guy either. You know, it occurs to me that there really aren't that many episodes left, so I feel like, surely we can't be finishing the story, right? Like, there's gonna be like a cliffhanger. Because otherwise I feel like finishing up the story in 3 episodes, I feel like you'd have to rush it, you know? I hope that's not the case. You know, I've been really enjoying this so far, and I do hope it gets a proper adaptation with all the runtime it deserves, I guess. Alright, so I'm not sure quite where Senshi's going with this here, you know, the idea of eggs and the miraculous things they can do. I'm wondering if that might be like a food metaphor and foreshadowing, you know, the idea that eggs can do all these weird things, and even though, you know, you liken souls to an egg, you know, maybe under the right circumstances you can fix things. I mean, that would be nice if that were the case, but I mean, I guess I don't know enough about the mechanics of all this stuff here to come to a determination. Now, I guess the question is, has Izutsumi learned enough table manners to go along with this? Ooh. You know, to say like, hey, stop glancing around at nothing, I feel like, that's something alright, you know, because like cats can see and hear stuff. Yeah, you know, I would trust Izutsumi despite how standoffish she has been, if only because this might be a matter of self-preservation. Ooh. This is something, you know, for Elias to be hallucinating with somebody constantly talking to him. You know, he's couching it as an hallucination, but I feel like this isn't that. I'm wondering if this is related to Elias being effectively chosen here. You know, because that's something Kabru was kind of hinting at, like, he has the chance to master the dungeon. Maybe this is the old monarch or something. Ooh. Alright, that's something. So this is the ghost that saved everyone. Yeah, you know, I guess that does sort of explain that whole business, because that kind of came out of nowhere at the time. But that doesn't really explain who this ghost is, other than, you know, some poor disquiet spirit who has nonetheless taken pity on them. I mean, I say that, but like, boy, this is still rather unsettling. And you know, there's no guarantee that a disquiet spirit wouldn't do something detrimental just because. Alright, so seemingly, it's dragged them up through the dungeon and back to the surface, which, you know, that's something alright. That's probably pretty a hefty journey. And frankly, I don't blame Senshi for not taking it too well. So they seem to have gone someplace real interesting here, you know? Like there was a castle or a manor in the distance, there's a unicorn here. And I guess it's even more important that they've been spirited out of the dungeon for some reason. You know, we don't know why just yet. Ooh. Alright, so the plot thickens, you know. There are tame monsters, and this villager says they're under orders, which indicates to me that, I don't know, this might be the domain of the wizard or something. Like, he's in charge here. Alright, so this villager basically confirms that these guys have been chosen for some purpose. And, you know, at this point in time, we don't really know what, but I suspect it relates to the dungeon. And I guess more to the point, it seems as though this has been prophesied that, you know, this group of people would come under these circumstances. You know, this is probably a nice change of pace to be treated like heroes. And I mean, they are adventurers of, you know, decent skill and talent, so there should be some renown to accompany them. But at the same time, this is a step far beyond that. Of course, I do feel a little sorry for these poor villagers just because, you know, Laius and Senshi in particular are probably going to be a handful with all their curiosity. And speaking of people being a handful, you know, I think this whole thing about monsters being tame and docile is what's affecting Izutsumi. Which, you know, I guess it's nice for the group for her to be so, I guess, docile, but at the same time it is kind of, bizarre. Okay. So it seems like there's something for both Laius and Senshi to get involved with. You know, monsters and gardening and all that. Yeah. So I guess the real question is, like, what are Marcel and Chilchuk gonna do? Like, I guess they have to give Marcel something nice to wear, which, you know, that must be a nice change of pace after slumming it in the dungeon. But I guess the question is, like, what's Chilchuk gonna do? Because, like, being a lockpicker, like, you can't just go around town picking locks. Oh. Wow. This is, like, ugly supermodel fashion. Wow. I mean, I guess here's our answer. Chilchuk's seemingly just drinking in the bar. I mean, I guess, you know, if you have nothing better to do. It must be nice for the brewer, too, to have somebody so appreciative of all the various things he brews. Because, like, it seems like you have beer and ale and stuff like that, and now wine. Oh, wow. That's interesting, to have been brewing for 400 years. Not within your family, but you yourself. I mean, that guy looked to be human, but if he's been alive for over a millennium at this point, then, yeah, there's definitely something going on here. These people aren't normal. So I guess the question is, you know, is this longevity, like, normal? And if it is, and is it beneficial? Or are these people, like, actually cursed, you know? Or is this, even worse, like the effect of the ghost doing something? So, I mean, who knows? This might be like a Lotus Eaters situation, you know, where they're really in this basically like dream state paradise designed to trap them. I mean, at least Laius is noticing that something's a little bit weird here in regards to Izutsumi, because she's certainly not behaving like herself. Yeah, you know, I guess that does make sense that because she's part monster, she would be affected in a weird sort of way. But at the same time, like, I guess it's interesting that Marcel can kind of understand what's going on here at just a glance. Wow. Yeah, that's probably not a good admission that if it weren't for the present circumstances, I'd want to stay here forever. That just seems to me like it's not a good place to be, you know. It's too good to be true, as it were. So, I mean, there was this whole business about seeing the master of this place, which this might be the person, but I feel like they were just being distracted by, you know, food and all that. Ooh. So this guy here's the grandson of Delgal, who was the king from all those paintings, who was, in actuality, a real person. So maybe it's by, like, the divine right of kings that this guy is so long-living. Oh, Laius. Imagine specifically requesting for Minotaur meat. That's maybe a bit of a bridge too far. Ooh. Okay, so that explains it then. You know, some people just don't eat at all because they've been cursed with immortality by the Mad Mage. Okay. Yeah, so I guess that explains a whole lot. You know, this is like a real and somewhat ordinary place, but everybody's been cursed with immortality, which, you know, that's something to be cursed with for sure, because, like, for a while it might be nice to live a long time, but, you know, like, once you experience everything and everything becomes routine and boring, like, boy, that would be bad. I mean, once you get to a point like that in your life, the only true novelty at that point would be death. Alright, so, you know, maybe this does sort of, like, set everything up for everything to be wrapped up. Because, like, I mean, it's pretty clear that everything's sort of tying together. A lot of these people have never really succeeded in ridding themselves of their curse. Wow. That would explain the ghosts then. You know, they are still technically immortal, they just no longer have bodies. Ooh. Yeah, that really does add a new dimension to that Holy Water Sorbet episode. Like, I mean, these poor guys, they were probably just, you know, driven insane by their condition. Ooh. So that's interesting. Laius' sword is an indication of his status as the Chosen. Oh, that's very interesting. Because this idea that it had a lion's head on it, you know, that is seemingly new, but maybe the prophecy made it so. Alright. So, you know, it's a prophecy, so it kind of gives up the plot, but the wielder of the winged sword will slay the magician and become the new king. So, I guess that's what's bound to happen. I find it interesting that Marcel and Chilchuk and even Laius himself would, you know, deny the prophecy, you know, saying he just picked up the sword by accident. Which, you know, he sure did from his perspective, but prophecy's weird stuff, man. It really is interesting that everybody's like, no, this prophecy's bunk, like, we can't possibly do this, but for things to sort of shake out like this, I feel like you should at least give it a try, you know? Wow. Yeah, the worst part of all of this was that he didn't actually really taste and savor the food. Of course. Yeah, why am I not surprised that Chenshi's like, yeah, they don't really know how to cook because they don't really eat. And, you know, that is true. Like, these poor villagers probably do lead a dismal life where, you know, they don't need to do any of this stuff. They only do it because they have nothing else to do, but not to pursue the act of doing it, you know? I guess it's like, if you just need to eat food to sustain yourself, like plain rice will do, but You know, it's not a very exciting meal. You know, at least Senshi has, like, the rational take here. Like, sleep on it and think about it. You know, it wouldn't do to make a rash decision. And to be fair, these people have all the time in the world, too. You know, they're not in any real rush. And frankly, who knows what happens? If you break the curse, they might just all turn to dust and die anyways. Which could be a benefit, really. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.